Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer, infamously known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, is one of history's most notorious serial killers. His gruesome crimes involved the murder and dismemberment of 17 men and boys, from 1978 to 1991. Dahmer's acts included necrophilia, cannibalism, and the macabre preservation of body parts. Born on May 21, 1960, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Dahmer's life and crimes are a chilling testament to human depravity. His eventual capture and trial revealed a deeply troubled mind and relentless horrors that shocked the world. Dahmer's story is not only about his criminal acts, but also about the failures of society and law enforcement to stop him sooner. These failures allowed him to continue his killing spree for over a decade, raising questions about the systems in place to protect vulnerable individuals. His name has become synonymous with evil, yet it also serves as a reminder of the importance of mental health awareness and vigilant law enforcement. As we delve into his life, we confront the uncomfortable realities of his existence and the profound impact of his actions. Jeffrey Dahmer's early life was fraught with challenges that would later manifest in his heinous crimes. Born to Lionel and Joyce Dahmer, Jeffrey's childhood was marked by instability and a lack of emotional connection. His parents' tumultuous relationship and eventual divorce left a lasting impression on him. From a young age, Dahmer exhibited disturbing behavior, such as an unusual interest in dead animals. His father, a chemist, unwittingly encouraged this interest by teaching him how to bleach and preserve bones. This macabre curiosity would later evolve into a deadly obsession. Dahmer's teenage years were marked by increasing alienation and escapism through alcohol. Despite his intelligence, Dahmer's academic performance suffered due to his substance abuse and lack of motivation. His early life, riddled with familial discord and personal demons, set the stage for the darkness that would later consume him. The signs of his disturbed psyche were evident, yet they went largely unnoticed by those around him. Jeffrey Dahmer's descent into murder began soon after his high school graduation. On June 18, 1978, Dahmer committed his first murder, a crime that would foreshadow the brutality of his future acts. He encountered Stephen Mark Hicks, a hitchhiker, and lured him to his home with the promise of alcohol. Once there, Dahmer bludgeoned Hicks with a dumbbell, an act of violence that set the tone for his subsequent killings. After the murder, Dahmer dismembered Hicks's body, beginning a pattern of behavior that would become his gruesome trademark. Dahmer later confessed that his motives were driven by an insatiable desire for control and possession. His ability to evade detection after the murder emboldened him, reinforcing his belief that he could continue his crimes without consequence. The methods Dahmer used to dispose of Hicks's body were as chilling as the murder itself. This first murder was a dark initiation into a world of horror that he would inhabit for the next 13 years. It set a precedent for the heinous acts that would follow, each more disturbing than the last. Following the murder of Stephen Hicks, Jeffrey Dahmer attempted to pursue normalcy by enrolling at Ohio State University. However, his time in college was short-lived, marred by persistent alcohol abuse and a lack of direction. In January 1979, in a bid to escape his deteriorating circumstances, Dahmer enlisted in the U.S. Army. He trained as a medical specialist, a role that ironically placed him in close proximity to life-and-death situations. However, his alcohol issues persisted, impairing his ability to function effectively in the military environment. Dahmer's drinking habits escalated during his service, leading to disciplinary issues and ultimately his discharge in 1981. The Army, recognizing his inability to perform his duties, released him on the grounds of alcohol-related misconduct. The skills he acquired during his training, particularly in anatomy, would later play a sinister role in his crimes. The experiences during his college and Army years were pivotal in shaping Dahmer's trajectory. They demonstrated his inability to integrate into society and foreshadowed the escalation of his criminal activities. After his discharge from the Army, Jeffrey Dahmer returned to Ohio, where he briefly lived with his father and stepmother. This period was characterized by continued alcohol abuse and a lack of purpose. The tension within the household led to Dahmer's eventual move to live with his grandmother in West Allis, Wisconsin. Living with his grandmother provided Dahmer with a temporary sense of stability. However, he continued to battle his inner demons, and his actions soon began to escalate. During this time he was arrested for indecent exposure, a precursor to his more serious offenses. Dahmer's behavior became increasingly erratic, and he began frequenting gay bars and bathhouses where he engaged in drugging and sexually assaulting men. Dahmer found employment at the Milwaukee Ambrosia Chocolate Factory, a job that allowed him to maintain a facade of normalcy while he continued his criminal activities. The move to Wisconsin marked a significant turning point in Dahmer's life, as it provided him with the anonymity and opportunity to indulge his darkest fantasies. This period set the stage for the horrific events that would soon unfold. The late 1980s and early 1990s marked a period of intense and horrific activity in Jeffrey Dahmer's life. Dahmer's methods became more calculated and brutal, with each murder exhibiting a chilling refinement in his approach. He often lured victims to his apartment with promises of money or companionship, only to drug and dismember them. This period saw Dahmer claiming numerous victims, including Stephen Tuomi, James Dockstutter, and Richard Guerrero. Dahmer's ability to evade capture allowed him to continue his spree. Cannibalism became part of his ritual, consuming parts of his victims. The year 1991 was particularly gruesome, with Dahmer committing some of his most notorious murders. Notable victims during this time included Curtis Straughter, Errol Lindsay, and Tony Hughes. Despite being found wandering the streets drugged, Conorak synthesomphone was returned to Dahmer by the police. Dahmer's reign of terror seemed unstoppable, exploiting both his victims' vulnerabilities and systemic failures. The eventual arrest of Jeffrey Dahmer on July 22, 1991, marked the end of a horrific chapter in criminal history. His capture was a result of sheer luck and the bravery of one of his intended victims, Tracy Edwards. Edwards managed to escape Dahmer's clutches and led police back to the apartment where they uncovered evidence of unimaginable horror. The search revealed photographs of dismembered bodies, human remains, and various tools used in his gruesome activities. The trial of Jeffrey Dahmer began on January 30, 1992, with the world watching closely. Dahmer pleaded guilty but insane to 15 counts of murder, a plea that highlighted the complexity of his psychological state. The prosecution argued that Dahmer was fully aware of his actions and their consequences, while the defense sought to prove his insanity. After 5 hours of deliberation, the jury found Dahmer legally sane and guilty of all charges. On February 17, 1992, he was sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms, ensuring he would spend the rest of his life behind bars. Dahmer later received an additional life sentence for a murder committed in Ohio, further sealing his fate. Jeffrey Dahmer's actions have been the subject of intense psychological scrutiny. Dahmer was diagnosed with multiple psychological disorders, including borderline personality disorder, schizotypal personality disorder, and a psychotic disorder. Despite these findings, the court deemed him legally sane, a decision that underscored the complexity of his mental state and its implications for criminal responsibility. Dahmer's psychological issues were evident early in his life, with signs of a disturbed mind manifesting through his fascination with death and dismemberment. His lack of empathy and need for control were central to his criminal behavior. Dahmer's crimes were not just about killing, they were an attempt to possess and dominate his victims. The role of Dahmer's psychological disorders in his crimes raises significant questions about the intersection of mental illness and criminality. While his disorders contributed to his actions, they did not absolve him of responsibility. The psychological analysis of Jeffrey Dahmer offers a glimpse into the dark recesses of the human mind. Jeffrey Dahmer's life behind bars was marked by notoriety and introspection. Imprisoned at Columbia Correctional Institution, Dahmer expressed remorse and sought spiritual guidance. Despite efforts to adapt, Dahmer remained infamous, feared, and reviled. On November 28, 1994, Dahmer was beaten to death by inmate Christopher Scarver. Scarver attacked Dahmer with a metal bar during work detail. Dahmer's death was met with mixed reactions, seen by some as fitting. His murder highlighted the dangers high-profile criminals face in prison. Dahmer's legacy left a lasting impact on victims' families and society. His crimes prompted changes in law enforcement practices. Dahmer's death closed a dark chapter, but questions remain.